We praise you and we bless you. Hallelujah. Just we dedicate this time to you tonight. Special prayer, Lord, for the church in our nation, especially Ireland. Come, Holy Spirit. Give glory to your name. Glory be to the Father, to the Son, to the Holy Spirit. As it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. Glory be to the Father, to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit. As it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Amen. Jesus, we lift up your name. 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 We lift up your name. Jesus, we lift up your name. Jesus, we lift up your name. Jesus, we lift up your name. We lift up your name. Your name is higher than heaven, greater than your name is higher than heaven, greater than your name is higher than greater than your name is higher than greater than Jesus, we lift up your name. 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 Jesús, now tayo. 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 Jesus, now tayo. Jesus, now tayo. Inawate yorita tayo. Inawate yorita inawate yorita tayo. Inawate yorita inawate yorita tayo. Inawate That's your name. Jesús sublime es tu nombre. 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 Jesus, we lift up your name. 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 Hallelujah, Lord, Jesus, we pray. Wherever I am, I praise you. Wherever I can, I praise you. For his love surrounds me like peace. I praise the name of Jesus, not the name of Jesus, for the name of Jesus lifted me. Wherever I am, I praise you. Wherever I can, I praise you. For your love surrounds me like a shield. I praise the name of Jesus, not the name of Jesus, for your name, oh Jesus, lifted me. Wherever I am, I praise you. Wherever I can, I praise you. For your love surrounds me like a shield. I praise your name, oh Jesus, lift up your name, oh Jesus, for your name, oh Jesus, live in me. Holy Jesus is worthy to be praised. We worship and adore. The next song. Holy Jesus is worthy to be praised. For he is the living God. And your praise you, for you are worthy to be praised. And your I'll praise you, for you are worthy to be praised. Jesus is worthy to be praised. Holy Jesus is worthy to be praised. Worship and adore. Worship and adore. Holy Jesus. Holy Jesus is worthy to be praised. For he is the living God. He For He is the living God. And we'll praise you, we'll praise you, for you are worthy to be praised. And we'll praise you, I'll praise you, for you are worthy to be praised. For only Jesus, holy Jesus is worthy to be praised. We worship and adore. Holy Jesus is worthy to be praised. For He is our living God. And I praise you, I praise you, for you are worthy to be praised. And I praise you, I praise you, for you are worthy to be praised. Wherever I am, I praise. Wherever I am, I praise. For your love, not me right to see. I'll praise your name, Lord Jesus, not your name, Lord Jesus, for your name, Lord Jesus, for your name, Lord Jesus, for your name, Lord Jesus, Amen. Hallelujah. Jesus' name. Oh, Jesus' name. Name above all other names. Amen. Amen. Jesus' name literally. This is from Ireland. This song. Surrounded by your love surrounds us like the sea. Ireland. Welcome, Ireland. Ready? Welcome,
The youngest first.
She's asking what is
Yeah, very, okay. And start with a few Irish greetings. See you, dude. We'll probably be too.
Jamali, I hear you.
Don't worry, just get right on top of it, Joe. And he did, which is God be with you. He is murdered, God and Mary with you. He is murdered is Padraig, that's what people reply to those, which is God, Mary, and Patrick is in it. So, would you like to try them? Okay, let's do that one again. You gotta get closer to the mic. Dear is God.
Dear,
Did with you.
with
God
you.
be with you.
Dear, with you.
A blessing, Garnet, a blessing. And just give it. May the nourishment of the earth be yours. May the clarity of light be yours. May the fluency of the ocean be yours. May the protection of the ancestors be yours.
Amen.
There's teams of the throne getting more. When St. Patrick came to Ireland in the 5th century,
Can you turn the volume up?
It's a maximum system.
You gotta, Jimmy, you have to hold it close to your mouth.
okay. When St. Patrick came to Ireland in the 5th century, he encountered the Celtic people and a flourishing spiritual tradition that had already existed for thousands of years. He discovered that where the Christians worshipped one God, the Celts had many and found divinity all around them, in the rivers, hills, sea and sky. The ancient Celtic reverence for the Spirit in all things survives to this day, a vibrant legacy of mystical worship that is unique in the Western world. The cycles of life and nature he draws from the holy waters of Ireland's spiritual heritage. One of the famous poems in that era is actually I See His Blood upon the Rose. It was written by Joseph Mary Plunkett, one of our Irish heroes who was shot by the English in the Easter Rising. I see his blood upon the rose, and in the stars the glory of his eyes. His body gleams amid eternal snows. His tears fall from the skies. I see his face in every flower. The thunder and the singing of the birds are but his voice. And carven by his power, rocks are his written words. All pathways by his feet are worn. His strong heart stirs the ever-beating sea. His crown of thorns is twined with every thorn. His cross is every tree. That really expresses the intensity of Plunkett's Christian faith. The conviction of Christ's suffering will never be forgotten as long as God's word remains the bedrock of existence.
Ready, you can put the stick down.
Yeah. Don't trust him. Because Gemma was giving you like an overview of how the Irish people thought. They thought of the Spirit of God in every living thing, in the rivers, in the sea around them, in the sky, in the trees. They were so Franciscan. They were Franciscan before Francis. And they seen God in every living thing. And so when Patrick came to Ireland, he found this spirituality. But unfortunately, their gods they made gods of everything they seen. They made gods of the sun and gods of the trees and gods of the rivers. And so Patrick took them and he Christianized their thinking. He Christianized the sun god by putting the sun on the Celtic cross. And I think we've got one, yes. You see the cross of Christ and the circle around it. It shows us that that's the sun behind it. He said, no, The Son you worship is the Son of God. And so he Christianized everything that the Irish people had, the Celtic people. They were very spiritual. And he found this beautiful spirituality when he came to Ireland. But he brought the truth that the Spirit of God was in the rivers, the Spirit of God was in the ocean, the Spirit of God was in the sea, that all over the world the Spirit of God is. So Patrick came, and I just want to tell my African brothers and sisters that St. Patrick wasn't Irish. He came as a slave. So our St. Patrick was a slave. And he was very keen on us to come here and tell you that, because it was on St. Patrick's Day that we got the word to come here.
Yeah.
On St. Patrick's Day, he told Danny, go as a pilgrim. Patrick was a pilgrim. Go with the blessing of Patrick. So we're here today because St. Patrick cares about slaves. He knows what it's like. And he was our national saint, is our national saint. And along with him, we have St. Bridget, who was also a slave, born into slavery. A slave, her mother was a slave, and she was born into slavery. So our saints have a lot in common with your country. And where are we now? We've got St. Patrick here, and of course we have that famous prayer that Nisha's going to put up, because Patrick knew that the way the Irish sing God, that Christ was all around them. Christ surrounded them. He was behind them, in front of them, within them. And they're sitting down, and they're lying down. Christ was there.
Christ be with me and within me, Christ behind me and before, Christ beside me and to win me, Christ to comfort and restore, Christ beneath me and above me, Christ in quiet and in danger, Christ in hearts of all that love me, Christ in love, the friend and stranger.
Now, it might interest you to know that before Patrick came to Ireland, there is proof that the desert fathers from Egypt came here first, came to Ireland first. So again, we have coming from Africa, from the north of Africa, the desert fathers came because they were looking somewhere really remote to pray. So they must have prayed on Irish soil long before Patrick came. And they were in the first century after Christ. So they had come to Ireland and prayed on Irish soil. And one of the ways we know this is on the Celtic cross, on the oldest cross, can be found the head of the Pharaoh. And he was treated as the devil. He was, a symbol of evil to them. And so he's at the foot of the cross. So that's just another interesting point, that there were intercessors in Ireland before Patrick came. And the one thing about the coming of Christianity into Ireland, there was no bloodshed, none whatsoever. Patrick walked. He walked among the peoples, and he must have bound to himself all the powers all the powers of the prophets, the prayers of the saints, the angels, the Trinity. He taught us all about the Trinity, very simply, with the shamrock in his hands. He had 3 leaves out of 1 stem. So Patrick done all that, and he walked carrying the scriptures above his head. So that was Patrick, and he came and converted the pagan kings. He lit a fire, and the pagan king said, the fire that he has lit this night will never go out.
Amen.
And that's the fire that's in Ireland. And that can also be connected with our logo, which I'll hit on later. But that fire was lit. Moving on from Patrick, we have St. Bridget. Patrick and Bridget are called the 2 pillars of the Irish Church. They are said to be of 1 mind and 1 heart. And Bridget, too, born into slavery, she got her freedom from a Christian chieftain. And she was a very, she gave everything away. She was like St. Francis. She gave her father's belongings away, just like Francis did. And the father wanted to sell her off because she was leaving the poor man broke. And so Bridget was just this humble woman but a very cheerful woman who wanted to do good to everybody, to look after the poor. And it's very interesting about her because she was an abbess. She founded monasteries. And at that time in Ireland, the faith it didn't follow the Roman pattern. The faith in Ireland was different. It was very much into nature and seeing God and everything. And it was a monastic faith. Monasteries started to spring up throughout the land. And Bridget founded a monastery in Kildare. She is, have we got her picture? She's here holding her cross, which she made out of grass. And I have one here too. She made her cross out of grass to convert a pagan chieftain before he died and to explain the crucifixion to him. And then she carried this fire, which never went out. It was called the eternal fire. And Bridget, like Patrick, carried this fire. She founded a monastery in Kildare, and the eternal flame burnt there until the 1600s. I think it was, no, until 600, wasn't it? When the French, they were from Normandy, and they didn't like the way that the Irish church was going. They didn't like the monastic life. They wanted the parishes and the dioceses and all these things. So they came and they put out the flame of Bridget. And that was how Ireland was. It went right through the monastic scene until eventually it changed into parishes and dioceses. And in a sense, we lost out on that lovely spirit. And that lovely, I always think it's the spirit